Friends, this thing here is called a loose tenon, also known as a domino. Festool makes a machine to cut the hole that this goes into. It cost $1,100. I'm not going to buy one. I'll build one instead. That's today's project. One thing we're going to need is a way to locate our device repeatably and accurately, and what we're going to do is make a fence out of this piece of angled aluminum. Okay, so I've marked it off, but before I cut it, I think I'm going to do some drilling in it. That way I'll have a larger piece to hang on to.
By drilling these holes side by side, where they meet in the middle, we'll make a nice sharp pointer. That'll be our indicating device. Then we'll drill a bunch of holes in a row, and I'll file those all together, and that'll give us a nice sliding adjustment. So filing aluminum goes really quick. I probably got this whole thing done in like half an hour, including the drilling.
I ended up remaking the alignment fence, and the reason I did that is because it needed more meat out here, because it needs to have a handle, and what I'm going to use for that handle is this styling 1940s glass doorknob. And it had a 3/8 24 interior thread, so I made a bushing from an old bolt to neck it down to 1/4 20. Alright, there's what I came up with. That's going to hold the unit in place really nicely. Now what we need to do is cut a slot in this for our blade to pass through and make some sort of arrangement so this can slide side to side. And here I've marked out the window. We'll just use that same drill and file method to open that up. That's way bigger than the domino. This is the size hole we need to cut. That should do just fine. Now we need to figure out how to get this thing to slide side to side. I think this hunk of phenolic will make a nice way to clamp this, and then allow us to bolt the phenolic down to something. So we'll cut this out on the bandsaw. Lay out some holes in it so we can use it to clamp this router. Once those holes are laid out, then we'll split it in half and make two.
This phenolic is about as hard to cut as aluminum. But anyway, we cut it out and then take it over to the oscillating belt sander to get the blade marks off it and to square it up.
So what I've done here is I've marked a center hole for my two round bores that I'm going to do. They're different sizes, but I wanted the center of both of them to be in the same place. Now we'll split this down the middle and make two clamps out of it. Okay, so the camera battery died and I'm really tired of that, so I ordered some new batteries. But anyway, here I bored a couple of holes. This one will slide over the end. This one, though, would not slide over, so I had to split it in two. Now we'll bolt these up to a piece of aluminum, and that will lock our router in place on this aluminum plate. I've drilled some 13/64 pilot holes in the aluminum plate. We'll match that up to the phenolic block and continue those holes into the phenolic. Tap this for 1/4 20, then enlarge this to 1/4 inch, and that will give us a nice secure mounting on this aluminum plate. And we want those holes to go straight in. So we'll square that to the table. This proves once again that you never know what you're going to find on this channel, but if you click that notification bell, you'll get a notice every time I post something new. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a gap there, and it's kind of loose. So we'll come in here and put a cinch bolt through there to tighten it up. Okay, so we'll square this up. I would really like to have a better bite on that, but beggars can't be choosers, right? Okay, now I think we'll come in here with this 2-flute end mill and just make a flat spot, and then we'll start there and drill Now, just like we did in the base plate, we'll tap that for 1032 and then we'll drill that out to accept 1032. Moving on to the slide mechanism, I think we'll just use these two linear bearings. We'll mount them onto the bottom of the plate. That should give us plenty of movement. It only needs to be half the length of the domino, and we've got almost the full length of it. Then we'll come in with a transfer punch and mark those. Yes. And as I always say, a transfer punch is only for leaving a mark. It is not a center punch. Okay, so there's my slide bearings. They're a little stiff. Some lubrication will probably help that quite a bit. They're not that bad though. Now we need to put those on something that'll give us our rocking motion. So here we go. I've got my two bearings installed, and this is very serendipitous that these bolts act as stops. So all I got to do is bolt these on in the right place, and it'll be my natural stop. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now what we need to do is make an interface from the fence and guide mechanism to the bearings, and it has to include a way to rock the router back and forth. And I went over to the scrap yard and found this piece of aluminum that is very stiff. I think I'll just cut a slice off of it and use this as my back to attach to the fence, and this as the mount to build the rocking mechanism on. Okay, when I bolt those together, that should be plenty tight enough. There's no flex in this whatsoever. We'll build our rocking mechanism on this. Bolt it to there and we'll be done.
From here I proceeded to match drill a plate of aluminum to the base plates of the linear bearings. Then I tapped threads into the aluminum base plates and countersunk the aluminum sheet that it's going to be mounted on.
Okay, there we go. It's a little stiff, but I'm hoping it loosens up. At minimum, it'll probably wear in. Now, all we need to do is put this onto this in a way that will allow it to do this. I think we'll do that with this bushing.
Now here I'm match drilling holes in the base plate and the rocker plate. Then I come back and enlarge the hole in the base plate to accept my bronze bushing.
Now we'll press this bushing in and cut off the excess. Now we've got that shoulder there, and when we bolt this together, this is going to want to hit. So what we'll do, so I've got these nylon screws, we'll put a couple of those in here and then sand them down to be the same height as that shoulder. That'll give this a nice little bearing surface to ride on. Okay, now we'll just sand that down so it's the same height as that shoulder. Bolt this thing together and try it out. Okay, now I'll use my plastic welder to peen over the ends of those screws so they don't back out. Now that's some pretty good alignment going on there. Now the only thing left is to put some limiters, so this can only go so far from side to side, and I think we'll just use these socket head cap screws for that. So I drilled and tapped a couple of holes in there. Put these set screws in. It performs the limiting function really well. Let's see if it's got enough movement. That looks good. Okay, that's looking good. All we need to do now is attach that.
And as you can see, my solution was to drill 3 holes and countersink them and bolt the 2 pieces together. Now it's time to test it out.
That's too loose. I mean, I know they call it a loose tenon, but that's not going to work. So here's the problem, is we've got way too much flex going on. And just that little bit of flex is all it takes to enlarge the hole beyond usability. I went over to the metal supply and I found a heavier piece of aluminum, and I did the same thing I did on the other framework. I installed a bigger bushing, a 3/8 bolt bronze bushing in there. Same thing again, I put nylon screws in there, sanded it down to the same height as the shoulder, and then melted the back so they won't back out. I cut the same hole in there, and I cut down my other handle to fit in on this framework. And I've got set screws in there. You just loosen those and this will slide up and down. And I pressed a bushing into the sliding piece too. That way the bronze shoulder has another piece of bronze to ride on. This heavier frame is exactly what it needed. The only other thing I need to do is add the side stops, and I just don't have time to do that today. But if you want to see the result of that endeavor, find me on Instagram. My name there is wildman.tech. Anyway, that's all for this time. I'm happy to answer any questions in doobly-doo below, so please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Click up here to see my last video. Click over here to see something of mine that YouTube thinks you'll like. And have a good one.